Hello, guys. We are back. It's been about a year since our last recording, but we had to take a brief hiatus for the effects of COVID, as many people have experienced. But we're back, and what a better way to usher in the new dawn than with a new co-host who's joined the D6 team. Introduce yourself, Dom.
Hi, I'm Dom. Some of you might remember my voice from a podcast called Realspace Raiders. I'm one of the hosts on there, and it's basically a Drakari-centric podcast. And yeah, I'm decided to branch out a bit, and D6 team have kindly brought me on to do some things with them. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Yeah, well, it's been absolutely fantastic to have you on. I know you're interested to talk about something that isn't just Drakari all the time. And I happen to know, because I've known you for a while now, that you actually were a Chaos player before Drakari. And what a better way to start with the first video than doing a Codex review of the new Thousand Sons Codex. Now, you've got quite a lot of Tzeentch yourself, Dom. What do you think about this book?
Yeah, so I'm so excited about this because I have got an apocalypse-sized demons army. And me and Lewis are really good friends. We live just down the road from each other, and we are like the chaos buds. So we have always like collected all of the zines, all the Nurgle and everything like this. And I've even named, when we did for our local club, my Lord of Change, Windface, who is like a celebrity down there. And yeah, I just have a lot of fun with demons. So I was super excited when Lewis told me about this codex coming up, and I'm here now to look at it with you guys, and I'm already so excited about it. We've got a chaos codex. We've got a chaos codex.
It has been so long. It has been the darkest of times. It really has. I've sat here for, what is it, 3 years since our last proper, since the last full Chaos Codex. Yeah, we've had a, Psychic Awakening, and we've just obviously got the Bellicor book. But these aren't codexes. This isn't a major overhaul. We've been sitting on the same data sheets and the same strats and stuff for a long time. So it's super exciting to get something actually new and actually good. I saw the Admech book came out. I saw the Sisters book came out. I was thinking, oh my God, if they're doing that with those books, what's going to happen with Chaos? Yeah. And they're not going to be at that S tier, like blow your face off straight out of the book list, level. But I can tell you there is some strong stuff in this book, man. There is absolutely some stuff here that I think when good players have had a good amount of time with this, they will be top tier list, and they will win GTs 100%. Maybe not every single one. It's going to take a good player, but the power's in there. It really is.
Yeah, exciting.
Exactly. So let's dive straight into it. So we actually planned out this video. We actually did do a recording of this video once before, but just because of audio, we weren't able to get it out in time. So we took a chance to retake it. And I must admit, I actually, in the three days, I think it was, since we did our first recording, this completely changed my opinion about this book. And many of the stuff that we talked about in the first recording, I thought, actually, there's other stuff and better stuff to talk about. And at one point, we did even think that this may be a 3-video bonanza to get through all the content, because there is content galore. Yeah. But I think, if I'm honest, I think we're just going to have to do what we usually do with a Codex review, try and keep it to an hour, cover the main things, the things you should be interested and excited about. And as always, we're going to do some Lewis's crazy chaos combos. So we'll come back to that at the end. Oh, so Dom, what's your first thoughts on this book when you first really got to grips with it the last couple of days?
Well, so my first thoughts were, I was kind of looking to see what all the new psychic powers were and all this sort of stuff, and have they changed this, have they changed that? But I started to see a trend, and it was a good change what I saw. And it was that if the book is more about playing the mission and just playing your own game rather than just killing the enemy. Yeah. And absolutely, I think that's such a good change, because there's been, like, the last codex is like Drakari, yes, we play the mission good, but we table a lot of armies. Then you got Admech, who are just oppressive and just they're just not a fun.
How many shots?
Yeah, so many bodies, so many shots, and it's just if you don't have a good turn one, you're not going to have a good game in general. Then you got not good codexes, really good codexes like Sisters, that are like creeping up the meta a little bit, because people are kind of working out that their MSU style of play is very good, and there's a lot of inruns, there's a lot of miracle dice shenanigans, and we have a codex like that. And that's really, really like rewarding for all of the Chaos fans, is that we're not having it's an amazing codex and then it gets nerfed down, and then this is not going to be like that. The models that are good now are going to stay good, and it's really, really good.
Do you know how, if I was going to define it in one sentence, I'd say it's got play. It's
Yeah.
got play in it. There is stuff you can do. I mean, I've been working on my competitive chaos list for like 3 years now. I finally think after squeezing every little drop out of the chaos codex and every single combo across all of the different chaos super faction books you have to draw from, I finally settled on what I considered to be really like the ultimate chaos book. The ultimate chaos list. And you know what? It was like a third Thousand Sons because Risen Rubrikai, in terms of forward deploying, which is still in the book, is super strong. The amount of shots you could put out from all the Inferno combo battles is super strong, and Cult of Duplicity being able to teleport around is super strong. All of that's in the book. My list is going to relatively remain unchanged if I do want to go for the super kind of mix, although this will really push you into a full army of Thousand Sons with this book, with the Cabal focus stuff that you can get. So all they've done is taken something that I already thought was able to compete and considered to be one of the best lists I've written, and take it to the next level, which means it can definitely punch in the A tier and maybe even take some of those S tier super down if it plays its own mission. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're not going to cover every single thing in this book. It's literally impossible. We're just going to pick a few of the most interesting things from each book, from each section. We're going to miss loads of it, guys. You know, there's going to be loads of things that we haven't touched on here. There's just too much. There's just too much in the book. So I think the best place to start with, as always, is to look at the actual secondaries. I say as always because we always talk about playing the mission. That's always something we've always done. How do you win? What's your win condition? Play the mission. And they have obviously their own secondaries, and their own secondaries are really going to dictate how you play. So I'm not going to cover every single one of them. We'll just cover the ones that I think are most interesting. Now, they've got something called Mutate Landscape. This is a bit like Spread the Sickness from the old book. And essentially what you do is a psyker, and it doesn't have to be a psyker character, just any psyker unit. When it's on an objective, it does a psychic action. So you roll to cast, and if you cast the psychic power, most of them are Warp Charge 4, so they're fairly easy, and you get +1 to cast, so you're pretty much guaranteed to cast them. You count as having mutated that objective, and then that means that objective is a tally basically, and at the end of the game you score 3 points for each objective that you've mutated. Now you can't mutate the same one twice, so it does mean you have to move around, and you have to be able to mutate ones outside your deployment zone. So there is some missions where this isn't going to be applicable. There's only like say 4 outside your deployment zone, but a lot of the time this is just a good solid one. You could have a little guy on a disc, moving around, doing warp time on himself, going from objective to objective, just mutating and moving off. And I think the key thing here that makes it competitive for me is it's completely uninteractable. Doesn't matter if your opponent's holding the objective or if he's on it, as long as you can get close enough to do your psychic action, you cast it and you've taken that objective as part of your mutate. So just solid, just absolutely solid. The other one that's worth mentioning, and it is 100% auto take if this ever comes up, is Wrath of Magnus. Now, what Wrath of Magnus is basically if your opponent contains at least one psyker. So, for example, like an orc list with a weird boy to cost the jump, or a Space Marine list, whatever, Psychic Fortress, whatever they want to get out of that one psyker, then it unlocks this secondary. And what this secondary means is at the end of each battle round, you compare how many models were killed in the psychic phase by psychic attacks. And if you killed more models, you get 3 points. So it is super easy if they have just to jump weird boy, he's not going to kill any models in psychic phase. All you need to do is do a smite every psychic phase, kill one model, which you're going to do, and you score 3 points that round. So it's in the missions where that comes, in the matchups where that comes up, it is an absolute auto take, easiest 15 points you've ever taken. Now, just to round off on this section on secondaries, because the others aren't that great, I would say that what I thought was most interesting about these, and why that I think this is what brings them into a top tier sector, is that both of these are in categories that you rarely take. The first one, Mutate Landscape, that is Warpcraft power, and the second one is a No Mercy, No Respite. Now, you are used to taking your shadow operations, and you're used to taking your you engage in all fronts and all that, and those categories then get locked out to you. So you can take either of the two powers I've just described to you, and you can still take engage in all fronts, and you can still take Rod, retrieve Octarius data. You can still take Strangleform. You can still take to the last. You've got so many options, not to the last. You've got so many options of other good standard book secondaries you can take. You're not, I don't think many people are looking at Warcraft as one of their 3 in any other situation, yet you can normally build a list around it. So yeah, just that's the secondaries in a nutshell. 2 solid ones there that are going to make it for easy scoring on the secondaries.
Honestly, they are really good, because I was thinking about that first one when you were talking about that then, and because of the maneuverability of this book, there's a lot of things that you can kind of use to kind of get yourself around, like cycles on discs. You can easily objectives, and even if you build your list solely around to do this objective, like coming from a Drakari like mindset, I build for Rod, so I have mandrakes after mandrakes, hellions to just throw away, and but I'm trading their points value for
secondary points.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so what you can do in build your list is you have the Zangor Shamans, you have your Zod Shamans, and then make sure you have some units at the back that are just going to do your own ones. And it's a great one. And the second one you talked about them. Most armies nowadays have psychism because of the fear of dark lances in armies. So you will get Psychic Fortress almost in every single Marines list and Death Watch list. So that is it. I honestly think that is going to be taken most games.
Yeah, it's an easy one. I have to correct myself actually, because I got a little bit confused when I was just explaining the center there. It's not the ones that are outside your deployment zone. That's one of the other objectives, secondaries that they've got. It's just any objective. So yeah, you've got 2 or 3 in your deployment zone. That's 10 to 15 points, no question. And all you need to do is do 1 or 2 at the other outside the deployment zone, and you got the maximum points. The thing to mention though is that you can only do a psychic action once per turn. There's no way of doubling down on that. So you only get 3 points per turn for having done this action, which means you've got 5 turns. You've got to do this every single turn. That's the only drawback. It's not a big one, but I would suggest you probably leave the ones in your deployment zone to kind of later in the game when maybe you're losing and you're still holding that back point. So like last turn, that's the one you do. But any cycle in your army can do it at any point. You're going to be taking MSU, you're going to be taking loads of stuff. You can have a Garner disc running around doing it, but even just your rubric squad can do it. So no, absolutely solid. I think those 2 right there are 2 that you could take in a lot of games, and then you still got the entire rest of the secondaries book from the main book to choose whatever else you want. Engage, domination, Rod, any of those 3 would fit with those 2 perfectly and score you max 45 points on secondaries, and then you just have to play for primary. So yeah, I mean, that is probably one of the strongest parts of the book. And it's a strong book, so right there, that is exciting. So let's move on now and just talk about the general army and then what they've brought out now. So really, I think people probably at this point seen a bit. We were hoping to get this video out, for the release of the NDA at 11 o'clock on Saturday, but with the audio, we had to recover it. But I think that means we don't have to go into such a basic depth. People have probably got some understanding about what the book does now. Couple of quick points. Everything gets 5 up and vulnerable save. That includes rhinos, vindicators, predators, land raiders, everything, everything in your army, hell brutes now get 5 up and vulnerable save, as well as all rubric marines, everything you'd expect as well. That is strong. 5+ and vulnerable save on a defiler, on a predator, on a land raider. These are really, really good things to have. But just a rhino, man. And I'm gonna say, if you haven't checked out the Goonhammer article, they always are absolutely amazing content. Don Hewson, oops, it's all rhinos. That's a solid list, man. I mean, a lot of times those articles are written, and they've had as much experience as we've had with the book. You're not coming up with the killer list day dot, but it's a list very similar to what he ran in Plague Marines. I played that list once; it's really good. I've done similar things with World Eaters, where I've run 8 or 9 rhinos with guys inside World Eaters. He's running 8 rhinos with 5+ and vulnerable saves, combi melter on each, 5-man squad on each with Soul Reaper. That's a lot of mortal wound output from the smites. There's a lot of durability from the invulnerable saves and melter guns. You can straight away see that as being a top tier list, and that's like the first thing someone's come up with. So yeah, no, honestly, that is a massive change, and it all plays off that 5+ invulnerable save for the attacks for the rhinos. The other thing that's really, really important, and I don't know how much this has been mentioned, you get all the obsec stuff you'd expect. Your Zangors get obsec, your cultists, your rubric marines get obsec, and your Scarab occult terminators get obsec. Like, that's the kind of thing you would expect to open up a campaign book and see that there's a new army of renown, and the special ability is that everything gets obsec, or you have to take some special legion and that gives you, the thing that gives you obsec. No, every Thousand Sons Scarab occult terminator base on his data slate is now just an OPSEC thing. So
Big winner.
yeah, that is good. That makes them amazing, because it's hard to justify the points against like a Blight Lord. They're very similar, but then they have to invest CP and stuff to get the kind of stuff that the Blight Lords get. In terms of like reduction in damage and stuff like that, but then they get OBSEC, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's 10 times better. That's just 10 times better than Blight Lords. So yeah, very, very happy with that. I don't have enough time really to interrogate what's called the Legion commands. These are, you've seen these a lot now, points upgrades you can pay for a character to get special things. It is interesting that you can pay the points upgrade for like your sergeants, your aspiring sorcerers, and give them interesting things like that action. That unit can now shoot and do an action. That's really strong. It's like 15, 20 points. And that means that, you know, a 10-man rubric squad can start in deployment 9 inches away from Risen Rubrici, which is what we had in the old book as 2 CP now, but it still exists. They can do an action, take a point, mutate landscape, or psychic action, and then they can still shoot, and that's just a 15-point upgrade. That's just strength. That's what I'm saying. That's play in a book, right? That just gives you something you don't have.
Yeah.
And there's some interesting stuff there. You know, you get to cast an extra psychic power and stuff like this. So really worth checking those out, having a read with them, coming up with your own combos. That there's going to be a lot that's going to come out of stuff like that, where you start putting 3 or 4 bits of this book together. I've got some we'll come to at the end that I've come up with, but you really spend some time with those and kind of think about the interactions. There's a lot of play there. Okay. Now I'll pass on to Dom in a second, but I think it's just worth us having a quick chat about the cults because I mean, they are the book. There are 9 of them, as you can imagine. It's scenes. The thing with them now is that, I don't know, they haven't changed very much. I mean, a couple of them have had some minor changes. The stronger ones have had some nerfs, and there's been 1 or 2 improvements, but I don't think they needed to change. I don't know. I mean, I was playing Cult Duplicity, and I thought that was absolutely amazing, and it's literally exactly the same. So Cult Duplicity, you can cast a psychic. Everyone gets the psychic power that allows them to teleport a unit. So it's just to jump, basically. You just pick up a unit and move it 9 inches away. That's changed now to not be vehicles or monsters. It's only just vehicles or like other things that aren't infantry or monsters or beasts, cavalry, I think, as well. Sorry, go on.
But that's fine, because you weren't really using it on those units anyway. You were kind of just using it on your, like, either you're using it on like big units of rubrics, or you were kind of getting things into certain places to help you score.
Yeah. That is the main play I had with it. I every turn I would be Cult Duplicitying a squad of rubric marines, or maybe like a spawn, just to get the engagement. I know he's going to die, for example, occasional fronts. That being said, when you pull out the quirky, oh my god, my Leviathan or whatever, I was playing Leviathan in a while on this list, it suddenly looks like he's about to be wrapped up in combat, something's going to kill it. Or he can't get a firing angle because you've hidden your entire army, and you teleport him to the other side of the board, and now he's shooting at the angles. You know, yeah, it was good. But hey ho, that's just the way it goes. And you know what? I'm totally happy. You still get to redeploy 3 units at the start of the game. You know, it is absolutely as solid as it was, and it didn't need to change. And I'm glad we didn't get what they did with like Astral Aim, where they just took it away and called it something different. So I'm very happy to leave that. One other thing I'll just mention just briefly is I saw it before in the when Psychic Awakening first released. I never really got a list around it, but I think there's more play in it now, and that's Cult of Prophecy. So this basically gives you a psychic power where you cast a psychic power. If you cast, it's like a 5 and you get +1 to cast. So it says 6 and you get +1 to cast, so you cast it on a 5. You roll a dice, whatever that dice roll is, you set that aside and you get to use it like a miracle dice. Now it is locked to hit roll, wound roll, charge roll, which is good, psychic test, which is amazing, and you know, a few other things, morale, for example. But you know, I'm just thinking the play that you can have with like setting that dice aside and making sure that you know you can get charge. You know, if you roll like a 5 or a 6, for example, and you've got a deep dark mana crystal unit going up turn 1, or you've got something coming out deep strike where you're cold, you know, something's going to move up the board and need to make that charge, just to have that 5 or 6 in the bank and know that's a guaranteed charge. Having played a lot of Emperor's Children's with a guaranteed 6, it is solid, and you replace it after the roll. So it is that creates that sort of knowledge that you can definitely make those charges, and you've got more consistency in your list. And that's what top tier players need. They need to know that they can do the thing that they want to do, and they're not just rolling dice. At the start of my enjoyment with Thousand Sons, I was running 70 Zangors, and turn 1 Dark Matter Crystal, and turn 2 bring in another thing from Deep Strike. +1 to charge on them, you're rolling an 8. I just stopped playing them because you realize that every 2 out of 3 games, you just don't roll that 8 and they just sit there and die. And so if I knew I had that 6 in my bank before I went for the play, like the Dark Matter Crystal, I'd be like, yeah, brilliant. Okay, I'm going to go for it. If I had a 1, I'd be like, I might do it next time when I know I've got a 6, for example, or something I can make a charge. So really, really solid there. I really think that's worth looking at. I think those 2 are, for me, are the main ones. People are going to still come back to Cold Magic because you just get an extra psychic powers to D3 more wounds, and that's fine. That is really good. Means you're going to be doing a lot of smites when you get to like 5 or 6 smite casts. You're on +5, +6 to cast. Just be able to switch out to just another smite for less warp charges. It's going to make a big difference. So yeah, I don't think there's much more worth talking about that. We got super excited about a few things like Sephiroth's Mirror before, which is really, really good. It's pick a unit, don't roll a dice. If they've got leadership 9 or less, that model attacks itself or attacks its own unit, just for a relic. Just amazing. Like a succubus these days comes flying into you, and you do it, and you're just like, yeah, you're just going to kill yourself. But I think there's so much in this book. I think we're looking at more actual competitive, good combos rather than just jank that just is funny for funny's sake. You're not taking the entirety of that cult in your army just for that one relic when there's so much else and so many other relics to choose from. So that is a real brief overview of the first section of the book. And we've gone 100 miles an hour through that, as we've had to do, just to give you a flavor for how this book can play out. So Dom, this is a Thousand Sons book. Thousand Sons are all about the psychic powers. There is in total 27 psychic powers, although 9 of them are the cult ones, and we've covered 2 already. So do you want to take us through the 2 main disciplines here and what you think is interesting?
Yeah, sure. So the 2 disciplines at the moment are Discipline of Change and Discipline of Vengeance. And they're both very good. I can't say which there's a favorite of mine. There's been a lot of new psychic powers added and a few changes to current ones that we have at the moment. I'm just going to run through like a whistle stop tour through just through them now. And so like we have Zinch's Firestorm. This is probably the best psychic power in the entire book.
And definitely the most improved as well.
Yeah. So it's Warp Charge 7 before. Now it's Warp Charge 6. Okay, you used to roll 9d6 and one mortal wound for each 6. Now, if you cast it on a 9+, it's a 1 mortal wound on a 5+. So
that's the big change.
It's huge.
So good.
It's huge because of all the pluses to cast you get with how you build your armies now. You're probably going to roll a 9+, and especially if you're doing it on certain characters that you get even more buffs. It's an almost pick up a unit.
It's an auto take. You were always taking it before. I would say when you say it's a Warp Charge 6 now, it's also the entire army has +1 to cast, right? From the Brotherhood of Psychos rule. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning. That's something I missed, perhaps. But yeah, every unit, funny enough, every model in your army gets the Brotherhood of Psychos, which means that it gets +1 to cast. So actually, like your Vindicator gets a +1 to cast, even though it's not Psycho. But anyway, no. But the point there is that it's +1 to cast. So actually, where it was a 7 before, it's now a 6, but 6 becomes a 5. So that's just solid. Now it's targetable, and that is the best thing about it, because what was really good before, and they have dumbed it down here because of the change to Doombolt, we'll come into that in a second, is that you used to take 2 or 3 targeted powers, so that you could basically snipe a character. So you go, I'm going to do Zinch's Firestorm, and you're going to Doombolt on you, I'm going to do Infernal Gaze on you, 3 powers, maybe Armor Man cast them, for example, +1 to cast, and I should be doing 5 or 6 more wings. That's the average, which means that you can just kill a character when he's hiding behind a screen. They've taken one of those powers away that can do that. So now you've only got 2 powers, but they've made this one better to be able to do it. So it really is like really good. And like you say, there's so many, we'll come into the Cabal focus after the psychic powers, but there's so many ways to get +1, +2 to cast, blah, blah, blah. You quite likely to cast that 9 if you wanted to. If Magnus casts it, he's definitely casting the 9 plus 5 to cast he can get. So yeah.
Okay.
Carry on going through them, mate.
Okay, so Glamour of Zinch was always a favourite of Thousand Sons players because it would give you a -1 to hit. This is always good, and I know we get that with like Forest now and all this sort of stuff. It's on the board, but where you can't get it is a lot of competitive play because a lot of the time it's just obscuring terrain. So this is kind of improved because it used to be a warp charge 7, now it's a 6, and
which is a 5. That's a massive improvement again. You got +1 to cast and everything. That's 2 better improvements.
Yeah, and now it's an 18-inch range rather than a 12 that you can choose. So it's pretty solid. I'm just going to quickly go through these. So Weaver of Fate's warp charge 6 now, and used to be a 7. Now it just says it gives you a 4+ invulnerable save. It's not going to give you a +1.
That is a nerf, and everyone who's played Thousand Sons before is going to look at that and go, "Oh, wow, they've just nerfed us into the ground. We can't get a 3+ invulnerable save anymore." And yes, they've also taken the stratagem out. They let you get 3+ invulnerable save, and yes, all it doesn't give you a 3+ invulnerable save anymore. But we had this discussion when we were talking competitively about this book, and I just had a thought for a while, and I thought back to all the games where I've rolled for a unit 3+ instead of a 4+, out of 10 dice, maybe lost that 1 or 2 extra models. If that's winning or losing me competitively enough games to make the difference, then I probably am at the absolute peak of my game. Very few people could probably comment on that. You've probably made more mistakes that contributed to your loss more than that one change. And you know what? There's no 3+ invulnerable saves anymore at all, except for Kaldor Drago and a few sort of archaic books that are going to get changed. So no, it's absolutely fine. It's acceptable.
Yeah.
And what I like about it actually really is a buff is that you used to be able to just give +1 to a vulnerable, and if they didn't have one, they get a 5+. Now this is just a 4+. So if you cast this on a squad of cultists that don't get an invulnerable save, now they've got a 4+ invulnerable save. So yeah, it's good. You can do it on a Fire Raptor. It's got a 4+ invulnerable save. So yeah,
don't
just throw that out there. Why not?
Don't give people ideas.
Suggesting things.
Right, so we'll quickly go on to the next one, which is temporal manipulation. So this used to be a warp charge 6, and now it's a 5, and this is heal D3 wounds, but now it's excluding vehicles, so you can't be hitting Land Raiders up and all this sort of stuff, which is okay. I mean, I can't imagine like in the lore that you would be doing like that anyway, so it's fine. But the big one here is Doombolt. So Doombolt was warp charge 9, and now it's warp charge 6, which is a 5.
But it was way better.
It used to be the closest enemy unit takes D3 mortal wounds, and now it's flat 3 mortal wounds.
Actually, I think it used to be targeted, if I'm remembering correctly. I think you used to pick something, and now it's only the closest.
Yeah,
that's the big nerf. But it is flat 3 instead of D3, so that's a bonus. It's if you'd never heard of Doombolt before, and you just read this for the first time, and it was a new power in there, this would be solid. You'd be looking at this going, this is one of the better powers, like almost one of the best. But yeah, and you also used to half your movement in advance, which you don't do anymore. But there's other ways to do that in the book. So no, look, I'm happy with it, and I will be taking it, and I will be doing three more wounds a turn by casting that quite easily. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's all I'm going to cover in this month's change, because there's a lot. So I mean, you guys are just going to have to get the book to find out the rest of them. But so this is the Discipline of Vengeance. No, this is kind of almost like a rewording of a few of them. And
it's the old Dark Hereticus. Yeah, it's all the Chaos Space Marine ones. They've just changed the name slightly. Annoyingly, they've changed them slightly. Like Prescience, they've changed to Presage. It's like, come on. It's the same power. So
that one, we'll start with that one. That is literally the same power. Warp Charge 7, select a friendly unit within 18, you get +1 to hit. Okay, fair enough. Is what it is. That's going to come in quite a lot when you want to give people who've got bolters, or if they're running into combat, you can give that to them. Fantastic. So the first one on the list though is Gaze of Hate. So warp charge 5, select one enemy unit within 18, roll 3d6, and every 4+, an enemy suffers a single mortal wound.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, well, that way it's just the Infernal Gaze, isn't it? So it's another targeted one, which is really good. And you just roll 3 dice, and on a 4+, you do a mortal wound. You're likely to roll 2 typically, so you're doing 2 mortal wounds, 1 to 2 mortal wounds.
Yeah,
it's exactly the same as it was. Games Workshop just absolutely trolling us there by calling it Gaze of Hate, because I literally read that. I was like, oh, we've got Gaze of Fate. No, it's not Gaze of Fate. It's exactly what I already know. Oh, they're just... they got me. And then they call the next one Twist of Fate, so they're totally trying to get you.
Twist of Fate is just Death X. That's all it is.
It's just Death X. But the difference with Death X in this book, and it's exactly the same as Warp Charge 8, sorry, that's what you're going to say there. The difference in this book is with Kabbalistic Focus, you could just auto-cast it. So that is huge. I mean, you would really struggle putting that on your list before because you're like, okay, I really need to get +2 to cast by having 2 psychics and do a stratagem. And even then I'm going for a 6 and, and then they can deny it as well. And you're just thinking, like, it's just almost too risky to take in a list, especially when you're kind of more limited on psychic powers. But now you're like, nah, going in the list, mate. And or trade it in with a stratagem, swap it out when you need it. But yeah, it's one of the best powers in the game.
Yeah. And it scares me. It really scares me because you could just be like, okay, Mr. Archon, standing there with your 2-up invuln, tanking all of my shots into you. How would you like having no save at all? And you just put that on him.
In all honesty, the only way to deal with an Archon previously was to take, Infernal Gaze, which is Gaze of Hate, Doom Bolt, which obviously you can't target now, and Zeech's Firestorm, and hope that you can roll 5 or 6 mortals on it. That was the only way to deal with it. Now you're just like, just get rid of its invulnerable save and shoot it.
Yeah. I tell you what, though, Lewis, there is another power on here which I think is the kill a succubus or Archon power, and it's Dark Blessing. Warp charge 6, so a 5 because you get +1. Select an enemy within 6, so they're in combat with you, right? And warp charge 6 and roll a dice, and it's D6. Sorry, let me start again. Within 6 inches, roll a D6, and if you beat their toughness, we're only toughness 3, okay?
Yep.
D3 + 3 mortal wounds. Succubus killer.
Yeah,
easy.
They had it. They had that in the last book as well, but I think the difference really is that the range on it has been impossible. I think it was less than 6 inches before. I can't remember. But the 6-inch range is going to be the thing that's going to be tricky to get that off. There is a way to increase your range. I think you add 6 inches to your range, so that becomes a 12-inch power. That becomes really realistic, and you're still rolling for what in that case would be a 4+, isn't it? And on Space Marine it'd be a 5+ usually, and onwards. So it is still a risky roll, but there is an amazing thing with the Infernal Master, which is the gain a reroll. We'll come on to that later. There's just a pack where you just get a free reroll, like old school command reroll, solidly good. And things like this is where that comes into play, because that's a 4+ rerollable, and all of a sudden that is solid against your sisters, against your Admech, against your Drakari, all of the top 3 tier armies right now that are just loving being tier 3 because they don't care about toughness, because they got, I don't know, transhuman, and they just have a million models, and you just go, no, I can pick you, you're within 12 inches, and I'm doing D3 + 3 more wounds. I'm just going to kill you on a rerollable 4+. What is it? Warp charge 6 as well, which becomes 5. Man, that's just going off.
yeah. There's a lot of these powers which I'm like I'm currently reading like now as well, that I'm looking at them going, this is very anti me. I would not want any of these to come up against it.
Honestly, that's it. They've got things that you are based on unit sizes of 6 or more in terms of doing D3 mortal wounds. That's solid. I did the same. I read this book and I was like, oh man, like so much of this is just designed to boost stuff. I mean, we didn't talk about Pyrrhic Flux, for example, right, which is just +1 strength to warp flamers, which is their flamer guns, basically strength 4, AP2, because they're Inferno weapons, basically flamers. So you could do Warp Pyrrhic Flux, that makes it strength 5, and then the Infernal Master has a +1 strength to all range weapons, so you can make those strength 6. You can then just teleport 10d6 strength 6 AP2 flamers anywhere on the board. Any of the armies right now, that is picking up Vanguard veterans out just nowhere. Unless they got the transhuman on them, that is picking up witches, because they just don't. What is a 6-up invulnerable save against that? And if I was worried about it, I'd just do Death X. You don't even get an invulnerable save. It's just good. There is good anti-meta in this book that I do think they had this in mind, and they should have they needed to get the book out sooner so that people wouldn't complain as much as I have for the last 3 months. So hands up on that one. No, look, it's solid. A Psychic Stalk is one that's just worth mentioning just because it's funny. It's Warp Charge 5, so you +1 in Warp Charge 4. You pick an enemy unit that's not a vehicle, character, or monster, so you can't do it on characters. Roll 2d6. If you beat the leadership, model slaying. Just slaying, So you've got those Alaris Terminators, just pick one up. Got Obliterators, 105-point models. No. Did I roll? I think the leadership 8 as well. So you're just like, I rolled 9. Is it 2d6? Oh, it's only 2d6. That's a shame. If that was 3d6, that'd be better.
I just want to talk about 2 more, and then we'll go on to the stratagems. So there's one which I labeled in our kind of notes as a great name for a metal album, which is Desecration of Worlds. That's so cool. That's so cool.
It's one of the first times I think I've ever read something where the power's great, but I had such an excitement going into reading that power, and I felt let down. The name was cooler than what it was.
Yeah, I was expecting like 4d3 mortal wounds to a selected like character, but
no, like every objective on the field, everyone takes 10 more wounds within range of it. So it just but no, it's not that. But it is still good. Do you want to read what it is?
Yeah, so it's Warp Charge 7, so obviously that's a Warp Charge 6. Select an enemy unit within 24 inches. Each time the unit takes a normal move, advance roll, falls back, or a charge roll. So basically everything Drakari do. Roll a they have to roll a d6, and the model suffers a mortal wound if they fail the roll.
For each model in the unit, isn't it? So
Yeah.
if you had like 10 or 20, or you're playing demons, they got 30 models in that unit, and they want to move or advance or charge Slanesh demons. You're rolling 30 dice and taking 6 models on 6s every time. It is good, man.
It's not just once though, it's every time you do a normal move. Every time you advance, so you do a normal move and then you do your advance. You're doing it twice. And there's certain things where you can fall back so that you do it then. You do your normal move, you do that, you charge, you do it again, and then you also have an advance in there. So anyone that does all of that, they die. The whole unit dies.
I don't know if no one really doing it, but like there was a point in time where people were looking at big units of troops and being like, oh yeah, because you could like troops are harlequins, you could like fall back and do this and stuff. And it's like you don't want to fall back and charge and move in the same turn. Like, well, it's only a fallback or charge. You do it twice, aren't you? But it's similar. Like if you're playing against another chaos player and they like move something and then they warp time it and they charge it, like that's 3 times you're rolling for that. So no, like it is good, and it makes them think. The thing is with a lot of these powers is that they're not ones that you're going to put in your list, but they're going to be ones that you need to have in your memory, and you need to have you need to have played a game where you've tested them, so that in the moment when that piece of the toolkit is what you need, you're saying like, oh yeah, all right, pay a CP, swap that power out, suddenly do that, all of a sudden I'm winning the game. Perplex is one for me like that. I know we're gonna move on because these are all good, but choose Warp Charge 7's at 6. Choose an enemy unit within 24 at the start of your next phase. Each time that unit is selected to shoot, units more than 24 inches away can't be selected at the range of attack. So you've got Leviathan at the back of the board or whatever. If you can even get this on like a Thunderfire cannon at the back of the world, or Whirlwind or something like that, Whirlwind's got a lot of popularity at the moment, and you're like, yep, just drop that on there. So if your Whirlwind wants to shoot, it's now going to have to come out and move towards me and be within 24. Like, oh man, like
Disintegrators, that's a great one to put that on. Your Dark Lance Ravager at the back for Drakari. I'd just like to say as well that it's a very good power, and I think it could be good if you can just put it on one person. You can teleport across and just go bang, you're not shooting me anymore, which I think
there's so many ways of doing this, because there's ways of being able to target ones that you can't see, but another unit in your army can see. You can add +6 to the cast. You can have just someone on a disc move 12, cast it, and then warp time themselves back out. So they can just hide again. So like there's loads of ways this is what we're saying. There's loads of play in this book. There's loads of things you can put together to do stuff when you need it, but you don't have to have it all the time. That's just in your bank. And if you need it, you pay a CP and you can do that. And if you don't need it because you're not playing tanks and long range weapons, but you're playing mass horde armies, you just swap out to the other thing. So great. We could talk for hours on that, but let's move on. Now it is really important before we actually go into the stratagems that we just cover the Cabal focus. Because this is a whole new thing in the book, basically. And this is it's called Kabbalistic Rituals, sorry, not Cabal Focus. And basically, you only get this if you're playing pure Thousand Sons. So if you're Supin, you don't get this. And I can't make a decision because I'm so happy with my Chaos list and Empress Shield and things like that. It brings so much firepower and stuff. But these are what I think make or break the Thousand Sons in terms of their psychic prowess. So basically, you've probably seen it on the Warhammer community. You get a point for every psyker, basically, and 2 points if they're a character for the most part, and some of the special characters get more. Well, in essence, most of the lists I've written, you're having between 15 and 20 of these points to play with. And they're just like old school charged up pool that you used to have in like 6th edition, and that you put 20 of these points aside, and yeah, exactly. I wish you were representative of dice, but yeah. So you put 15, 20 points aside, and at the start of the phase, and they're gone at the end of the phase whether you use them or not. So you get to choose, and there's a bunch of stuff you can choose to cast them on. Some of the stuff ranges from, I don't know, like I think the cheapest is 4 points, and the most expensive is 9, obviously because it's each. And there are just ones in here that you will do every single thing. So every single turn, you're going to have one unit do Echoes from the Warp. It's 4 Cabal points, gives you a psychic action that you cast on a 3, which becomes a 2 because it's +1 to cast. If successful, gain 1 command point.
Easy.
So this army is getting 2 command points every turn. One from just the fact that you get one every turn, and one because someone's going to do this every turn. So you're getting 2 command points a turn. That's 10 command points throughout the game. It's just insane. So
do what you want.
Yeah. And it just gives you that flexibility, especially late game, to be like, oh, it's a 2 CP strat. Am I saving up for 2 turns to be able to do that? That strat in the last turn? Like, no, I don't have to think about it. I just get 2 a turn. If I don't use one, I got 3 the next turn. Like, oh, it's just amazing. The other one I think is going to happen every single turn is Malevolent Charge. It's another 4-pointer, so it's very cheap. So you can do 2 of these for 8 points, which, just to give you a feel for what 8 points is, that's let's say 2 squads of rubrics and 2 characters, because the rubrics will take an icon of flame that gives them an extra point. So that's like a mini patrol is giving you 8 points, and you're going to do these 2. So if that's on the board, you're getting it. Yeah, you're definitely casting it. So Malevolent Charge is whenever you do mortal wounds to a unit, just do an extra D3 mortal wounds. So you smite a unit for D3 mortal wounds, you pay 4 points, you just do another D3 mortal wounds to it.
That's good.
You're just doing that, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're just doing that. And then I kept mentioning earlier about how many different ways there are to like get +1 to cast and stuff like that. So just to round off through these, 5 points gives you +1 to cast, but you do it after you've actually cast. So if you fail it, you do it, and if you haven't failed it, you don't do it. And if the +1 wasn't going to make a difference, then you don't have to pay it. 8 points.
I've just thought of something.
Yeah.
The last one you said, every time you do a D3.
Yeah.
You get
no, it doesn't explode with like an astral blast, if that's what you're thinking.
I was thinking of Dark Blessing, where it would be 2d3 plus 3 mortal wounds.
In essence, that's what it'd be. It'd be Dark Blessings D3 plus 3, and then you pay 4 points to do another D3. So yes, it would be that.
Oh.
Yeah. So actually, that's what makes the targeted smites like actually doable. Or even not that. Tzeentch's Firestorm. You do Tzeentch's Firestorm. You roll 9 dice. You roll 2 or 3 5s to do 3 more wounds, and then you play this to do another D3. So like really, really good. 9 points gives you 2 plus 2 to cast. That's a big investment. That's the most expensive one. But yeah, plus 2 to cast, mate. If you do that with Magnus, who already gets +2, +3 to cast, then he's getting +5 to cast.
Oh no.
But then there's also 8 points gives one that just automatically passes and cannot be denied. No, sorry. 8 points means you can't be denied. 7 points gives you it automatically passes at the minimum value. Now 7 points for that is solid. If you're doing that Death Hex version, Twist of Fate, and you need to get rid of that invulnerable save, you just pay your 7 points. So if you think about it, if I'm saying most armies get 15 to 20 points, you're like, okay, I spend 4 on Echoes of the Warp, that gives me a command point, 4 on the extra D3, because I'm going to use that at some point for damage, so that's 8, 7 on Pact from the Beyond, that's 15. So that's probably what I've got in the tank, especially late game as you start losing models. But early games, you've probably got another 5 to 8 maybe. So maybe you're auto casting 1 or doing an extra +2. There's just so much. It's one of those things where you really got to just play the book, play these again and again, just know they're there, because if you forget that you've got, +6 to the range of your power, and you measure a power out and you can't do it, and you go, oh, I can't do that power, it's a shame, I can't kill that model. Oh, damn it, I forgot I had a thing that increased the range, but it's 2 phases later. Like, you're going to have to play the book, man. You're just going to have to play it. But those, I haven't covered all of them there, but, those right there are just what makes solid. Into the Sisters matchup, to have the guaranteed, you can't deny this, that's really solid.
Wow.
There's just loads of things. So, okay. Well, that is the Cabals. So we'll come on to the strats now, I think.
Yeah. So your top stratagems then, Lewis. What have you got?
Yeah, I read the stratagems the first time. I wasn't like super stoked, and then I read them again, and I started seeing some combos and stuff. There are a few ones that were worth mentioning. A tiny little one on the side, seeing as we've just been talking about the mortal wounds, and it kind of leads off the psychic power thing. Is there's 1 CP when you do a smite, it automatically does 3 mortal wounds rather than roll a D3. the consistency off the back of that is just brilliant. Yeah. So
Perfect.
so if you think about it, you can do a D3 with that. Then you pay so you're doing flat 3 there. Then you're going to pay the ability to do the extra D3 on top of that. So a smite for you is going to be 4 to 6 mortal wounds, and or maybe use the +2 to cast to get you like the casting on 11, so that you get the D6 mortal wounds. So D6 plus D3 is amazing, and then another unit does D3 plus flat 3. I know that's quite complicated, but you see that's 2 units just doing smites, and both of them are going to be putting out like 5 plus mortal wounds. So like that is I mean, that's just a solid 1 CP, probably going to do it in most games, to be honest, especially when you get 1 CP for free every turn. That's where it's going, right? Now, the interesting ones and the ones where the combos come out of, I think, is things like Unwavering Phalanx, which reduces the damage from 2 down to 1. And obviously that links in with your All is Dust. So if you get shot by your 2 damage weapons or attacked by 2 damage weapons, the 2 damage becomes 1 damage. And then because it's 1 damage, your All is Dust gives you +1 to your armor save. So something that's like AP1 or AP2, D2, which is really prevalent in the meta and solely what people are taking at the moment, that becomes AP1 and D1, like it's half as effective.
Wow.
So that is really good on Scarab Cult Terminators and Rubric Marines. So yeah, that's a good. That's just. I mean, you are going to do that. I can't remember how many CP it is. Actually, I'll have to check in a second.
That just takes splinter cannons and auto cannons out of the game. Leviathans, they're not as effective anymore. I mean, they'll have to run Crimson Fist so they can be flat 3 damage. So.
Yeah, man. Leviathan shooting you just like so strength 7 and AP1 2 damage. Now I basically get a 2 up armor save and it's 1 damage. So I don't care.
And then
I literally don't
care. Obsec Terminator, and you're doing nothing to me.
Exactly. So that's really solid. There's all of the ones that you would expect. It is important to note that is you got your cast an extra psychic power -1 to switch out a psychic power. There's some of the old ones. Infernal Fuselage is worth mentioning. It used to be a double shoot. They're trying to get rid of that unless it's in very particular circumstances. GW are trying to get rid of this kind of double shoot, double fight sort of situation. So now it's just 1 extra shot with your bolt guns. But if you're shooting 40 bolt guns and you're going to become 50 bolt guns, 1 CP for 10 shots, it's probably worth it, to be honest, especially if you buff them up with prescience and other things. You've still got your Veterans of the Long War called Wrath of the Wronged, but it's 2 CP now, so it's a big investment, but still when that comes out, man, if you think about it, well, I was thinking, right, you have those warp flamers, you boost them up to T5 and then you do this, and all of a sudden they're wounding most things on 2s, and it's like 10 D6 of a big unit of shots that auto hit. So it's worth it when you use it. It's gonna be worth the 2 CP, but you can't just spam it like you used to. But okay, I was talking about combos and play, and I think it's been in the book before, which is this selfless automata. It used to be called yoked automata. And basically what this is that when a unit gets charged, a character model, just character, that's in range, that's within 12 of a Scarab Occult Terminator squad or a Rubric Marine, they get to heroically intervene 2d6. Now we used to have this, you've seen this in like I think the Salamanders have a book of it, and we obviously used to have it before. It's so good that it stays there, because especially now that they're OBSEC, like they get that free 2d6 movement. Only 1 needs to move towards and be in engagement range. The rest of the like 10-man squad can curl out onto an objective, moving 2d6 basically, and being OBSEC. So that OBSEC combo of that is really powerful. The other thing that combos into that I think is just amazing, and this is where for me the whole T-Sons book has just become a real competitive edge, is Implacable Guardians. 1 CP, you get the bodyguard rule basically, and you do it in the start of your opponent's shooting phase. But bodyguard rule is the strongest rule in the entire book, in the entire game at the moment. And if you think about it, if you have a character, say you got 5-man Occult Terminator squad or Rubric Marine squad, they're out of line of sight behind a building. Your character is within 3 of them, and then within 3 in the objective, because typically buildings in tournaments, they tend to be pushed further away from the objective, so you're not always able to sit in a building and be within 3 of an objective, and I think that's a good thing. And the bodyguard just gets around that, the bodyguard rule. So you pay 1 CP, you cannot be targeted without. I'll read the rule to make it sure I'm saying it right. So until the end of the phase, while that model has been free of any friendly Rubric Marines or Terminators, enemy models cannot target that model with ranged weapons. You can't shoot them. You have to shoot the Terminators, which you cannot see because they're out of line of sight. And he's sitting on that objective. Well, how do you deal with that? You can't shoot him, so you have to go and charge the objective, right? Or charge him on the objective. So you charge him, and then that squad 2d6 heroically intervenes into you, and their obsec and take the point back. So you can have something like just an Infernal Master or a Sorcerer or something sat on objective, untargetable, so you can't shoot him. And if you charge him, you're getting charged for 10 Scarab Terminators.
It's really strong. It is really strong, and I think it's a good change to have in the book, because it really creates this sort of play where it's just like the will, should I, shouldn't I go in and charge, because you're going to get the hammers of Zinch coming out, and it's going to be,
and they're powerful, man. Like, have you seen the new Prospering Kapesh on the Terminators, the new weapon?
Well, yeah, I was going to talk about it a bit later, but we can talk about it now.
We'll talk about it now, because we'll talk about the Terminators quite a bit now. So what does that do then?
So the reason why I like the Scarab Terminators, because you can buff them up so much with combos, and in combat they're like with +1 to wound, +1 attack. They're already at strength 5 -3 2 damage.
That's the new weapon they've got. I mean, that's a profile. That is a profile right there, isn't it? AP3 2 damage. Solid profile.
Yeah, even with because it's great because of all the new the new orcs, which are +1 toughness. It's going to help out a lot, and there's so many different
squig boys, man.
Psychic powers which can buff. They're solid. They really are solid.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm bringing that into combat when you're not expecting it is good. We have to talk about gamesmanship here, and it's something that you mentioned, and I think it's really important to cover, is the gotcha kind of style of this, because heroically intervening has always been one of those things that kind of gotcha, and I think most people now, certainly good players, have got to a stage where they just ask, because there's so much going on in all the books. You don't know what every single thing does, or you probably did at one point but you've forgotten it. So you just say, is there anything you can do to heroically intervene? Your opponent tells you that. But I think this is one of those things where you get to use that. Rather than a gotcha, you get to use it to make your opponent make a bad decision. If you give your opponent too many decisions, they're going to make bad decisions. So if you say to them, you can't shoot this, you can charge it, but if you charge it, you get charged by these guys, and they've got obsec. And your opponent's like, oh man, and he sits there fumbling around trying to decide what he's going to do about this bloody unit. And the answer is there's no good option. Like, you haven't given him anything that he works with. But now he's spending so much time thinking about this thing that really ultimately is no good option. He's better off just rolling a dice, or trying just to move on with his life, that he doesn't spend too much time thinking about his other game plan and the other things, and and that's where that's where you force your opponent into making mistakes. You only got so much limited brain capacity, and when you start thinking about a problem that's being presented to you and you're on the clock in a tournament setting, you are going to overthink that problem. You're like, if I charge them, I do this and I do that. And it's like, then you're not thinking about anything else in the game. So that is more powerful for you as a competitive player than the gotcha of, haha, they were going into your face. Now you've had a bad time and you think we're having an argument over something else. Now we're both wasting our time.
There is a few examples which I can give, which this could be super powerful any time in the game, but more so late game. So you've set this up so this could potentially happen. Then you've got say playing White Scars, and they fly there. They're really powerful Vanguard vets. They're all ready to go in and just hammer you down, and then you heroically intervene. But you're going into your final turns where maybe you're not holding all the objectives because it's been quite a brutal battle, and you realize that with that 2d6 you can get that obsec unit for your turn, which is coming up next, on the objective to give you a 15, and it's a big points increase with that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
If you get the heroic intervene,
you might even be able to get it onto another objective. You might even be able to. You might have just, if you had a 10-man squad, you might just swing that guy right around. You just getting 2d6 movement out of anything. But the other thing to think about, you playing Drakari, they've got Herd the Prey. You can use that to get yourself into a table quarter that you went in. Your opponent, like you said, the primaries is a big key there. If you can swing within, and there's not, the objectives tend to be pretty far apart, but 10-man rubric squad can cover a lot of ground, right? They pretty much cover the whole board from start to finish. They probably leave about an 8-inch gap either side if they're max coherency across the longest width of the board. I know that because I played that a lot, and that's how I set up and call it duplicity on the line right in front of everyone. That is just. There's so much movement. There's so much shenanigans that can come out of that. And being obsec and just being able to take stuff, absolutely killer. So this is why I'm saying that is something that a good player will find play in this book that isn't just, oh, my vanguards shoot like 30 shots each or 60 shots each and they all wound automatically on force. So like it's not obvious, but when you play it, you will get play out of it. And I just think it's not like a high skill cap book. It's not like, Gene Stealers were when they Gene Stealer Cult were when they first came out, where you really actually got to be a good player to take advantage of the play the book has. But it's just stuff like that's going to work out. Bodyguard rule combined with the heroic intervention, solid,
strong.
We could talk for hours on this. It's really hard to keep everything short and sweet. So I think the only thing I want to mention quickly, you still got Risen Rubrica, which I said. One of the things I think is really good in this book is a thing called metaphysical focus. And basically this allows you to cast a psychic power after you've cast an action. So normally a psychic action. So normally you cast a psychic action, that's it, you can't cast any more powers. But this allows you to cast a power afterwards. And oh my God, all of a sudden you're thinking Cult of Duplicity for the teleport, or you're thinking just temporal surge, i.e. warp time. So now what you can do is you could, like, say you've taken warp ritual, where you have to do a psychic action in the center of the board 3 times, and if you do that you get 12 points. So it's solid 12 points, almost undeniable really for most lists. You take a guy on a disc, for example, you move him 12, you cast a psychic action, pay a CP for metaphysical focus, warp time and back. Use Cabal focus if you need to make sure you get the guaranteed cast. And then you pop out 12 inches forwards, 12 inches back, cast it 3 times over the game, 12 points in the bag for secondaries. Like just, solid. Similarly, like the other thing I was thinking, like maybe a Terminator Sorcerer teleports in using his native teleport, does it on the backfield for maybe Pierce the Veil. There's I think it's Vital Ground, where you're on that weird diagonal board edge, and Pierce the Veil lets you do it against your opponent's battlefield edge, which is not necessarily the deployment zone. So in that one, you actually can land like literally on the edge in order to cast it. So you teleport there, miles away from anywhere that's going on in the fight, land there, do your psychic action, and then Cult of Duplicity back. And then next turn, Dark Matter Crystal forwards, do the action, Cult of Duplicity back. You've done it twice that way. You really need to do it 4 times for max, but so that just gives you play, man. That is again another really powerful thing.
I think that's what's so good about this book is it's really just 2 things. You can move anywhere you want to move, and you can be wherever you need to be.
Deep strike zone, deep strike zone forbidding. People can screen and they have to screen,
of course.
But
like, you can be anywhere you need to be at any time, obviously, if you can get there. But it's so good for scoring your secondaries, scoring your primaries, and
winning the game.
Winning the game, but also defensively, like we've explained with the Terminators. For instance, the way that like my Drakari army plays, I set up for turn 2 and 3, where I just have mass waves of witches and incubi hitting you. Well, like, a clever person will realize this and be like, okay, well, he's coming to me anyway. I don't need to commit everything to kind of get my Terminators up to get shot with Dark Lancers. I'll just stay behind this wall. He can't shoot me with Dark Lancers. When the witches come in, my Terminators come in as well. And I pick up the witches before he gets to even attack with them. So there's a lot of play. It's control. It's really just that they've got their own way of controlling the way they want to play, and it's very hard to stop them from playing their own game.
I'm really glad how you've explained that there, because before this book came out, and I was thinking, Thousand Sons Ninth Edition, how are they going to make it like super OP and make it really good if they were going down that route? And the only thing in my mind, I was like thinking like blue mana deck from from Magic Gathering, if people know that. It's a control centric deck. And I was thinking the only problem with that is like if you control too much of what your opponent can do, it's not fun for the opponent in this type of game. And they have been moving away from that in terms of like how much you can interact with what your opponent can do. What they've managed to do is exactly what you said there. They've given you control, but your control. You control so much of what you can do. You can be anywhere on the board. You can be heroic being. You can't be shooting stuff. Blah blah blah. All of these things. You can be controlling your reroll. As I said, command point gain. You get a free old school reroll, like reroll any one single dice. You got Cult of Prophecy for putting a dice to the side and using that for things. You have so much control in what you can do, and that means that good players can take advantage of that to get that consistency and to make sure the plan they have in mind, their scheme, gets executed. That's Siege. That's Siege. That's so good. And how do you do it? With pages and pages and pages and pages of scrolls / rules, like a proper Thousand Sons cycle would do. Sorcerer
Yeah.
Supreme. So yeah, look, this book is just absolutely ace. So I think we've covered a lot there. There's a few other things. There's one thing called schemes of change. We'll do a little bit of foreshadowing, so we're in a very Tzeentch mood here. Myself and Dom are going to launch a new series on the channel, and we'll cover this off a little bit right at the very end as well, where we're going to call it Let's Talk Warhammer, and we're just going to chat about the meta, and we're going to talk about the games that we played and the tournaments we've won or done well in recently, and really just have a good chat about just two people who enjoy Warhammer, talk about Warhammer.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I want to cover, and we'll discuss it maybe in one of the points, is called schemes of change. It's a new stratagem in this book, and it's a stratagem in the Grey Knights book as well, where you get to pick your secondaries and you get to redraw your secondaries after you've picked them. So it's a really interesting talking point. We'll cover that off. That's a little bit of a cliffhanger for you guys if you want to check out that Let's Talk Warhammer series. But that's going to be some really interesting discussion because it's a completely new stratagem. It's in two very different books. It's clearly going to be some kind of MO moving forwards. So yeah, we'll cover that later. So to finish then, I say to finish, we haven't covered relics, we haven't covered wall of traits, we haven't covered so much, but we are almost an hour into this at the moment, or maybe just over an hour. So I think what we'll just do is I'll briefly mention one or two relics, and then we'll go straight into Lewis's crazy combos.
Yeah.
If you're happy with that, Dom?
Yeah, well, this is what everyone's here for. We're here to hear your crazy combos, and so please tell us.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Well, in fact, you know what? It works really well because most of the combos center or involve the relics. So the relics I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about the combos. So let's just go straight into the combos. The first one is going to be called the Miracle Man. Now, the Miracle Man is just an Infernal Master. It's just a setup for an Infernal Master that I think is really good. I think that I'm almost certainly going to have an element of Cult of Prophecy in my army, whether that's a patrol or just for one unit or two, or whether it's actually a bigger thing, because the rolling that dice, setting it aside, is really strong. Knowing that you're going to be able to make that charge. We talked about it earlier, the Scarab Occult Terminators, perhaps Dark Matter Crystalling, or 20-30 Zangors or whatever. So I really think that's a really powerful thing to have. So basically what he's going to take is Divine the Future, the psychic power he has access to. He's going to take Glimpse of Eternity, which is the reroll a single dice. That's his pact. So you roll a dice on 3+, you get to do this pact. He gets a free reroll of any dice, and then he's going to do a roll a dice and set it to the side. So he's going to roll a dice. If he rolls a 6, he's going to set it aside. If he rolls a 1, he's going to use his free reroll to roll that dice and try and get another shot. So you've got a very high chance of getting a 4, 5, or more. And if you've got a 5, then you can be very likely to be able to make that charge. Because if you roll 2 more dice after that, as in a charge roll, you are looking for a 4 or more on any of those dice. And bear in mind that you can also pay a CP to command reroll, a normal command reroll, that charge. You're going to roll 4 dice to try and get 4 more with your 5 aside. On your sideboard, you're getting that 9-inch charge. So I hope that makes sense. It's a bit complicated, but basically, what in essence here is it's guaranteeing a charge. So it's the Infernal Master. It's got the psychic power from Cult of Prophecy, and he's got the pact that he gets to take. So that is just absolutely solid. You might as well give him the reroll. He gets 2 packs. The other pack might as well be the reroll psychic powers, so that he can make sure that he can cast that blessing to give him the sideboard dice, and also you gain 1 extra Cabal point a turn. So he's giving you an extra Cabal point, a reroll, which you may have to use on your blessing, but if not, you've got it separate, and a separate dice on the side. That is miracle dice, as they should be, rather than just, I've got like 10 dice and I'll pick whatever one I want. That is like, no, I've got all the exact dice for when I need them, and I've got the rerolls for when I want them, and I'm getting all these points. So he's absolutely solid. And just to come back onto a combo, so we can mention a relic, because at the moment that's pretty stock, is if you give him the relic that's in his cult, which is Cult Prophecy relic, then when he gets charged, he just gets to move 6 inches before you roll the roll. So he is your deep strike zone screen, because this is where we come back to the combo earlier. You put him within within range of, or within 3 inches of a squad of Rubik Marines or something that's going to got that heroical intervention, but also giving him the bodyguard rule. And then he can't be charged, because if you did charge him, he's just going to move 6 inches back.
That's great.
So like that, and for deep strike zone, that's just amazing, because you can't deep strike charge him, because you land, you go to charge him, he's the closest target, and the only thing you can charge, he moves a 6 away. Now you can't charge anything, and you can't shoot him because he's got the bodyguard rule. And then if you wanted to, you could maybe just move him like maybe 2 inches back, so that if they make the charge, then you're making that heroic intervention with the yoked automata much more likely, because now they're even closer to you, because you still got to roll 2d6 on that to make a charge. So yeah, like all of that, just so much jank, so much control, so much consistency you can get out of that. So yeah, absolutely solid. There is one other relic just worth mentioning that is maybe an alternative to the Cult Prophecy one, if you want to take this in another list, and that is one where a charge of a 9 or more always fails. Like, how does that work? So like, if you put him out as a deep strike charger, again being within bodyguard rule range, and so someone charges, like, let's say Bloodletters, for example.
Yeah.
They have to roll under a 9 to charge you, which means they can't charge out a deep strike. So it's just a guaranteed no charge out deep strike. But even if they are close to you, let's say they're 6 inches away from you, and they roll a 9, they fail the charge. So even though they're 6 inches, they can't make that charge. So now they want to re-roll their roll to make under a 9, but more than a 6.
Zeej, what are you doing?
That is like,
that's cool.
So powerful. And if you've lost a wound, you get +1 to cast as well. Like that's, oh man, like that is so good. So that combined with the bodyguard rule on like anyone but Infernal Master is what we're talking about here. Yeah. That is just he's the miracle man. You ain't getting him. You're not getting away from him. You can't shoot him. You can't charge him. he's giving you a Cabal point. He's giving you a command point. He's giving you a free roll, re-roll that you put into the side. Like this dude is just doing absolutely everything. So yeah, oh man, just solid. And like I said, you don't need to be charging them up turn 1. You just yeah. And so the last one that we'll talk about, and then we'll call it a wrap because this video is getting on a little bit now, is the Demon Prince that just heals forever. This guy is going to be so good. He's going to give you Death Guard a run for their money. So you can only take 1 Demon Prince in 1,000 Sons now. They've changed that around. And what you're going to give him is you're going to give him the Conniving Plate, which gives him a 2+ armor save. So it's just absolutely solid. It also, just forgotten what the other part that does. Where is it here? How did I forget? It also means you reduce the number of attacks that the opponent has by half. And
wow.
They could, well, actually what it means is they can only allocate half their attacks against him. So if you had another unit in combat, it was like a mass combat, they get to do all their attacks, which can't allocate it towards them. But if you're only one-on-one with, like, I don't know, a succubus or something, it's literally just half attacks. So he's got 2+ armor save, and you can only allocate half your attacks against him, right? So then you can class, I don't know, Glamour if you want to on him for -1. He's got a 4+ invulnerable save anyway. He's got 2+ armor save. I'd give him the Warlord trait that's -1 damage. So now you can only put half attacks against him. He's -1 to hit. He's got 2 up armor save, a 4+ invulnerable save, and he's -1 damage. Like, that dude is an absolute pain in the butt to put down.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So this guy, he's just solid, right? And just he's a Demon Prince. He's got like a fat 3 damage weapon, a bunch of attacks. Like, he's solid. He's still got another psychic power to cast. I probably would Glamour off someone else in the board onto him. I don't think he needs to take it. But what I would take with him is the healing psychic power. So D3 mortal wounds healed per turn. And then there's so to keep him alive. But then there's another stratagem for 1 CP that if you cast 9 or more, you can do another D3 heal. So this guy's healing 2d3 a turn, and he's got that defensive stats with like 8 or 9 more eight wounds, I think it is. Like, that is just, he's just going to go on forever. Like, you are going to have to pump so much into him. It's one of those things where you always feel like you don't pump into him, because if you don't kill him, there's just he's getting like 4 or 5 wounds of Racketers most of his life. Like, and he still can be bodyguarded by a unit. So you Dark Matter Crystal or drop in 10 Caravocop Terminators, you have him to the side. Like, you can choose. Do I want them to try and shoot me? Oh no, I'm on 2 wounds. So this turn I'll make it so I can't be shot and he has to shoot the Terminators, and I'll have another chance of healing up 2d3. So the next round I'm back to full wounds, and then I won't do it that turn. He gets to tank all the damage. It's another one of those situations where you're forcing your opponent into a terrible choice. Like, do I kill him or try and kill him, or do I try and go for the Terminators? And if I don't go for one and go for the other, then you get to switch which one they attack for next turn, because you switch on the bodyguard rule, you don't switch on the bodyguard rule. And he's a character anyway, so he can just hide in the monks and without even paying the CP. So it's just, absolutely solid. So I think that's it. I've got a few more combos, but given the length of the video, I think what we'll do is we'll trail those into the Let's Talk Warhammer series. And if you guys are good boys and girls and you come and join us, then you'll get to see a couple more of these combos out of this book, because honestly, this book's just going to go on and people are going to continually find new cool stuff about it for some ways to come. So Dom, final takeaways from the book?
Do you know what? That last Demon Prince scares me more than anything out of everything you've said, because I just thought, hold on. So my succubus gets 5 attacks rather than 10 with her relic triptych whip, and instead of being 2+ poison and 2 damage, she's 1 damage.
What's the AP?
-3.
So I'll just be my 4 command save.
So you'll find there, but that 1 damage, I would not even.
So hang on, let's just check that. So that's 5 attacks that were hitting on 2. So let's just say it will hit, and then you're wounding on
2 + 2s.
Oh, 2+ poison. So 5 wound, and then I've got 4. Well, I'm going to put past 2, maybe 3 saves on average. So you're doing 3 damage to me, maybe 5 if they all go through. You're doing 5 damage to me, and then in my turn, I'm going to heal 2d3, which is probably between 3 and 5.
He's solid.
I could just not attack you every turn, so that could just go on, and I can still cast 2 power, because if I don't need to heal, I can still cast smite and do 3 more wounds plus d3.
Well, just like the Chain Lord, you found another cool combo.
I think a lot of people will see that comment, to be honest, because it is it's just pretty obvious when you start picking up the book. But I think that there's nuance in more of the play, to be honest, with the competitive side. So my takeaway is that is a amazing book that I could have easily done 3 hours. And I think every minute of that 3 hours would have been interesting information for Thousand Sons players, maybe not for anyone else. Let's leave it there, and we'll catch you hopefully in about a week or so's time for our first Let's Talk Warhammer. You excited, Dom?
I'm so excited about that.
Absolutely. Catch you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye.